everyone, my name is Mike Evans. Welcome to another 15 minutes on Friday. And today I wanted to talk to you about spend data and the importance of it, because I started my career as a procurement analyst and then a consultant, and I realised that every good procurement decision and every procurement department is searching for that clean data to make those decisions from. And what it reminded me of, or what it should be, is kind of something like this, where access to data is readily available, is well sorted in a kind of a library. Maybe it's coming from different places, but at least you can find it and you have good access to it. However, what I found in a lot of cases across multiple different organisations is that sometimes it is not structured this way, and sometimes it's hard to come by. And it reminded me a little bit more of something like this, something like a Where's Wally book. And you can see I've even blurred it to make it a little bit harder, because even though data might be available, sometimes it's not the cleanest of data. It's not the easiest to find, it's not the easiest to understand, it's not the easiest to pull together, especially if it's coming from multiple different places. And this can bring a challenge to a lot of organisations, which is why a lot of procurement transformations and a lot of procurement projects start with a desire to get that vision and visibility into the data, so they can start making the good decisions, sometimes even before they look at, say, transforming processes and to leverage contracts. A lot of the times it starts with a good understanding of where they spend data. And so for today, what I'm going to have a look at is maybe my own book. Instead of a Where's Wally, maybe it's a Where's Mikey. And I'm going to put myself in the corner so I'm not cheating too much. But you can imagine this is procurement data. And this is kind of the challenge that a lot of people have, is that to understand and to find those opportunities, to find Mike, where are we going to go to get it? Well, this is where systems that help clean the spend data really help. Because what we can do, if we start kind of cleaning this image up to help find me, is we can start kind of deduplicifying the data, take all the duplicates out of it and remove them. And therefore we're left with a lot of a cleaner picture. But we can go a lot further than just kind of deduplicifying the information. We can actually then start looking to categorize and enrich that data. So we can put everything into categories. Whether it was correctly classified in the beginning, in the raw data or not, we can look to different data clues to see how is this going to be classified now. And so we've divided up here into people, animals and objects. And so we can even go kind of a step further and drill down into particular categories to really help find Mike in this instance, but in kind of procurement terms, savings and opportunities. So we can drill into the people, and it becomes even more obvious who's who, and we can even enrich that picture, make me really big, so that we can help easily find the information, and we can help easily kind of find this through, in this case, what we would call enrichment. Right? We're making the picture bigger, we're making it really easy for us to find those opportunities. And so, as I mentioned, a lot of companies sometimes struggle with this, and I want to show you this through the system and through a demonstration. So what I have in front of me here is a vision of procurement data, and I've got kind of side-by-side comparisons here of before any enrichment or any data cleansing has happened and afterwards. So a service like Spend Analysis from SAP can take all of your raw data from wherever it sits within different ERP systems, across multiple ERP systems. It can put it through a cleansing and enrichment process so that it becomes more reliable to make those good procurement decisions, so we're not guessing about where we're spending our money and who we're spending it with. And here's an example of that. So if we just had a consolidation of all of our ERP spend, we get a top 10 suppliers that look something like this. Whereas when we go through a enrichment process and we look at taking out duplicate suppliers, and we look at maybe enriching those with Dun & Bradstreet information to see what the parent suppliers are, it looks predominantly the same for our top 10, but we can see that some of them are different. And if we have a look at our first difference we see here with this Spectrus supplier after the enrichment, we may want to find out why. Why is it different? Where is that supplier come from? Who is it? I don't recognize it. And this is where we can start drilling in, and this is the value that that enrichment and that clean data gives you. So I can click onto Spectrus here, and I can then start seeing my before chart update, and I can see that the data that is in my ERP is completely different. It's not called Spectrus. I wouldn't have even known that it had kind of had a link here, because I've got two suppliers, or three suppliers actually, in my ERP. That is Brule and Omega, and those are actually subsidiaries of Spectrus that I wouldn't have known about if it hadn't been for this report and this enrichment. And I would have been missing out on about $1 million of spend here. So if I get, and I only negotiate, I get Brule in to negotiate, to discuss their performance, and I'm only going on the data that sits within my ERP, I'm missing out on about $1 million. Whereas if I talk to Spectrus, I'm getting the full spend that's across all of their different subsidiaries, and potentially I can leverage then a better deal. So it really gives us some insight, and it really drives some value into how I can negotiate with that supplier. And this comes from a real life example for me, that I was working, as I mentioned, a procurement analyst and then a consultant, working for organisations, and they'd ask questions like, how much do we spend with a particular supplier? And this should be really simple information to get out of any system. Hopefully they expected a quick answer, but in reality it took me quite a while to actually find out, because I had to go to different sources of information. I had to download them all into good old Excel, do a sort by name, and then try and pick out. And there were like 70 instances, 70 different types of the same supplier. Whereas what we can do here is, like I said, deduplicate them and then look to our supplier database to help provide some additional information. And I just want to explain quickly how exactly that works. So let me just do that. So if we take our ERP suppliers as they would have been in the ERP, we can see here that there is IBM and International Business Machines, kind of different names for the same organization, and these are the entities that we transact with. So when I place my purchase orders and I get invoices back in, they're coming from these suppliers that sit within our ERP system. What spend analysis gives us, and the way we clean it, is we put it into our database, we enrich that supplier. So we've done and Bradstreet information with address information. We kind of work out a little bit more around who that supplier is, address information, and like I said, deduplicate as well. So then we can start kind of rolling up and working out, okay, if we're transacting at this level, in our database it says it's this particular supplier, we can then start going up levels to see, okay, if I want to get the best deal and deal with IBM or International Business Machines as a whole, I can roll up all of the spend across all the ERPs and then get a consolidated view of the spend. So we may never transact at this global parent company in terms of sending out our orders and getting our invoices back in, but we might want to manage them at that level. So here is kind of the first way we can start enriching and classifying our data, especially when it comes to suppliers. And we can see this here through the stats that we have on the left hand side. For all our ERPs, we have 774 suppliers. Once we've been through that process of deduplicying them and enriching them, it comes down to 492. So that was maybe method one as to how we get some enrichment and some value from this. And as I scroll down the page and explain maybe a number of other ways, we have here, and you might have seen these update as we went through and looked at a particular supplier, we have our sustainability goals and how and where we want to spend our money as an organisation. And we can see and track this spend across the supply base, and again this is coming from that enriched spend analytic data. We can see off contract and PO versus non-PO spend. Again, want to get more spend under control. This is a great way to visualize this and represent it, and we get this information again from not just our ERP, but combining that maybe with other different data sources such as Ariba data sources. But down below, and maybe another example from my past, is a lot of the times spend isn't correctly classified, especially if we're relying on users to make that classification. Now, things like guided buying, it gets automatically assigned, but when we are creating purchase orders maybe in an ERP or maybe a not easy to use system, then a lot of the times it can get incorrectly classified or not even classified at all. I've worked with organisations where the top 3 spend areas were miscellaneous, unclassified and other. And this is obviously what we want to avoid, because it doesn't help us when it comes to, again, making good decisions. So we see before and after again. And I can see that a large chunk of this spend is classified as NA, or not applicable. Maybe it didn't have a categorization. But again, through analytics, spend analysis, enriching that data, looking at different data clues as to how it's, what it is, who it was bought from, what the GL was maybe, we can start to get a better understanding of what this spend might be. So we can see here now it's updated, and we can see that, okay, it was NA originally, but now a lot of it has gone under transport and storage. So more under financial and insurance services, power generation. We've started to enrich and classify this spend data to make it more meaningful, so that we don't have a lot of information under unclassified, and therefore we can't do anything with it when it comes to negotiation. So again, let me just spend quickly a few seconds talking about how this works, and taking the original input, as I mentioned, looking at different data clues, which is what spend analysis does. We have an algorithm that does this, takes that raw information from purchase orders or invoices and makes it more meaningful. And it does that through this convolutional neural network, or as I like to call it, machine intelligence. And what it will do is then take the information such as the description and try and work out what it is to a high degree of confidence. And it does it by kind of triangulating these different data clues, or maybe more than triangles, because that's only 3. But it can look at the description, it says router. It can then look at the supplier, in this instance Cisco, who provide network equipment, so pretty sure it's getting a higher reliability level. And then it can also look at, say, the GL that's assigned, it's IT in this case, it may be an ERP commodity, maybe something else that goes into this. We also have custom fields to help you map your own, if you have any specific classifications. But this is how we can kind of guarantee to a fairly high level that the information you get is going to be usable and is going to be enriched to the level you want it to be. So this is, as I say, just a little bit on the how the classification works, how we can start adding that into the raw data that we find within the system, and it allows us to do a little bit more than that. If I go on to the next slide, is then we can start looking at things like supplier fragmentation. By category, how many suppliers do we have in each category? How many global parents do we have? And therefore, how much negotiation room do we have? We can also look on a part level, if we have that data to hand, to look at where opportunities are within the organisation where we're buying the same part but potentially at different prices. So here we can identify good savings opportunities, help us make those strategic decisions, and help us gain those savings that we're looking for. So going back to my slides and to kind of finish off here, as always, if you are interested in finding out any more about what we've seen here, you can contact myself. You can drop some comments in the YouTube channel. If you want to speak to someone from SAP, you can scan this QR code. It will take us to the Contact Us form. And also feel free to reach out to myself on LinkedIn. Again, this QR code will take you to my LinkedIn page where you can ping me a message and discuss anything. If you want to see more on this topic, if you want to see a different topic, let me know. Help me make these as useful to you as they can be. But yeah, I think using the spend analyst module from SAP will really help organisations that struggle with that quality of data get it to make more meaningful decisions. So, as always, thank you for your time. Feel free to reach out to us, and hope to see you next time. Thanks a lot.